Mhm.
What is up, guys? I'm Nathan Walz, and welcome to the Quantum Biology Revolution. I'm joined by my co host and son, Jay. Jay, you want to say hi?
Hello.
Thanks for joining me, Jay. And so tonight we're going to talk about my favorite biohack. And on the Quantum Biology Revolution, we talk about quantum biology, quantum health, and really the core driver of health, which is at the quantum level. And a lot of health advice today is really at the biology level. It's focused on diet and exercise. We are going all the way down to the atom and molecular level. And the biohack I'm going to talk about tonight is a great way to really optimize your quantum biology. And I discovered this biohack 14 years ago. And I remember leading up to it, if you've been on the show before, I've kind of talked about my journey in uh, getting Lyme disease, of being treated for it, of getting much worse, and then finally finding a solution to completely turn my health around. And that solution is quantum biology, quantum health. And before I discovered this, I used to get this Thai massage to help with Lyme disease because I had a lot of chronic pain. My neck and my shoulders were just super stiff and super tight all the time. I had a lot of pain, a lot of discomfort. My back was in a lot of pain, so much that I hated to travel. So just flying on a plane or driving in a car any longer than an hour, I was in pretty extreme pain. So I used to go to this CrossFit gym slash yoga studio for Thai massage. And this woman used to teach yoga in my old neighborhood. And her and her boyfriend ended up opening a gym. And part of her offerings was Thai massage. So to get to this Thai massage, I had to walk through this CrossFit gym. And for me, it was one of the most intimidating things I ever did because my weight went from 175 pounds down to 140 pounds when I was being treated for Lyme because I was on all these antibiotics. And I was also, at this time, I became vegetarian. And I don't do well vegetarian. I don't do well on antibiotics. So I ended up losing all this weight. I was the weakest I'd been ever, probably since I was like a little kid. And I had very low energy. And walking through this CrossFit gym, seeing these people do, at the time, what looked like just very intense, very insane workouts was super intimidating. And I used to hate that walk. It was kind of like the walk of shame for me. And, walking in and walking out both kind of sucked. But during this time, I discovered quantum biology. I started doing all these different biohacks, and I really radically changed the way I live my life. And the biohack we're really going to talk about tonight is cold thermogenesis. So cold thermogenesis, it's got all these benefits, but essentially you are submerging your body in cold water. And I started doing that. And when I first heard about it, I thought it sounded really crazy. And when I was in college, towards the end, took me 5 years to graduate. But I went to college I went to Oswego State, which is in upstate New York. The winters were very cold, and I was just getting really, really sick of the cold weather. So when I graduated, I moved down to DC, and it's not quite Florida, but it was definitely a lot warmer than New York. And I come across this guy, Dr. Jack Cruz. I'm learning all about quantum biology and these different biohacks. And one of the first ones was cold thermogenesis. So I was just like, I don't know, I hate the cold. But he has a forum on his website, and all these other people had done it, and they were writing about their experience, and they had some very positive results and just a lot of very positive feedback. And I was so desperate at the time to get better, I was willing to do about anything. So I did this 3-step protocol, which I'm going to share with you. But within 2 weeks, I was doing full body submersion in cold water in the bathtub in my house. And actually, after that first week of doing full body submersion, I was feeling better than I had in many, many months. And so this was in like the end of August when I discovered it. And about probably like 3-4 months before I discovered cold thermogenesis, a good friend of mine started doing CrossFit. And he would call me up, and he was so excited about it. He's like, dude, I'm in the best shape I've ever been in my life. You would love this. You should do it. Because before I was treated with Lyme disease, I was really into working out. I was in very good physical shape, though my sleep was horrible and I had all these symptoms. I looked physically fit on the outside because I like to work out. So my friend is trying to get me to do CrossFit, but when he's telling me about it, I'm at the weakest I've been in my whole life. And I start doing cold thermogenesis. I start doing these cold baths, and I'm feeling better and better. And I think it was like 3 months into it, 2 or 3 months into it. I forget exactly how long it was. I had enough energy where I was like, you know what? I'm going to try to do CrossFit. And I started doing CrossFit. And 2 to 3 months after I started, my weight went up to 185 pounds. Right now, I'm about 175. I still work out, but this is 15 years later. So I don't have quite the muscular endurance I used to have, but for like a CrossFit workout. But that was the biggest and the most jacked I've ever been. Even when I was in college working out, I did rugby for a semester. I was working out very intensely. I actually got bigger 20 years after college doing this. So why is cold thermogenesis so beneficial? So let's get into some of the science of it. Let's talk about how it benefits you and the different kinds of cold thermogenesis. And actually before that, it was about a month ago. I still do cold thermogenesis to this day. When I was really dealing with a lot of symptoms from Lyme disease, I did it 4 or 5 days a week, and I was doing it for like 35 minutes at a time, which for most people, you're not going to really need to do that much. If you're dealing with a lot, and if you just want to take a pill, this is not for you. You should probably just turn this off and watch something else. But if you're willing to go balls to the wall, if you're willing to do what most people consider something very extreme, then this is totally for you. And I promise you, if you commit to this, if you do this, this will give you some of the best results in your life of anything you've ever done. I guarantee it. But I still do it to this day. I do it 2 days a week for 15, 20 minutes. It's really, at this point for me, it's more of a maintenance. And where I live, the winters are very cold and dark. So it really helps me get through the winters where I don't get a whole lot of sun. I'm not spending as much time outside as I'd like to. So let's talk a little bit about the different kinds of cold thermogenesis. And so there's non-shivering thermogenesis. And once you start doing this for a while, oh, actually, I skipped the story about Jay. Sorry about that. I'm kind of jumping around. Anyway, it was about a month ago. I was getting my bath ready for my morning bath. And my wife, Lindsay, challenges our son, Jay. She says, Jay, if you can do it for, how long was it, 20 seconds?
Yeah, 20 seconds, I'll give you $10.
Was it 10 or $20?
$10.
$10, okay.
And she couldn't my dad took a video of me. He posted it on X, I'm pretty sure.
I posted it on Facebook. So Jay did a really great job. He gets in the tub. The water is still running. It was 44 degrees because it was in the dead of winter when he did this. And in the middle of winter, the water comes out of the tap, super cold. We had a much colder than normal winter this year. And the water got down at one point, it was like 42 degrees. So that's the coldest it's been in a while. When Jay did it, it was 44. And so 20 seconds. So he gets in there.
I didn't have my chest fully submerged. So he made me do it for another 20 seconds.
Yeah. So Jay he was cheating a little bit. I called him out on it. And so then he went back and he was fully submerged. He did it for 20 seconds.
And then I went screaming, running out. But when you do a cold bath, you should definitely start with like a head dunk or something.
All right. Don't give away all my secrets, Jay. We'll get into that in a little bit. But, and Jay, I don't know if you remember. Do you remember the first time you did a cold bath? You were like 3. So we were on vacation. I think we were in Dominican Republic, and the resort we stayed at had this spa area. And
now I remember.
Yeah, so we go to the spa area. My wife wanted to get a massage, and I just kind of came along. I didn't really care so much about a massage, but I just wanted to check it out because they had a sauna. But we get there and they had this cold plunge too. It was a really nice one. It was really big. So I was like, cool. So I go in the cold plunge, and Jay was 3. And Jay was like, can I come in? And the woman's like, no, you're too young. And he starts crying. So the woman's like, okay, he can go in. So I pick up Jay and I kind of gently ease him in. And he was in there. He got in up to his neck. And he was in there for, I don't know, like 5, 6, 7 minutes. And so when babies are born, I'm going to actually tie this into the first part. So there's the non-shivering genesis and there's the shivering genesis. So non-shivering is when you have brown fat. So your body has different kinds of fat. You have white adipose tissue. So that's like right under the surface of your skin. You've got white adipose tissue. And there's different kinds of white adipose tissue. There's brown adipose tissue, and it's brown because it's very dense in mitochondria. So if you look at it under a microscope, it looks more brown than white. And it's very metabolically active. So like right now, I have a fair amount of brown fat because I do a lot of cold exposure. You can be completely inactive, like just chilling on the couch, and your brown fat is burning white fat to make heat. So that's non-shivering thermogenesis. And babies are naturally born with this. And most people have seen a baby, but you know that babies are kind of pudgy. And there was actually this story of this baby born in Argentina. And I don't know all the details. It was in the paper, like it was quite a while ago at this point. It was probably like 15, 16 years ago. And the doctors thought this baby was dead. They put the baby in the morgue, and in the morgue, it's like 38. It's very cold to preserve the body so they don't rot. So the baby was in this morgue overnight, 12 hours, and very cold. It's like, I think it's less than 40 degrees, like 38 degrees or something. But the next day, it turns out this baby was still alive, and the baby was completely fine because babies have a lot of brown fat. But what happens is most people today never expose themselves to any extremes. So in the wintertime, they have heaters on in their house. People have remote controls in their cars, so they turn on the car. So by the time they leave the house, they're outside for 5 seconds, they get in their car or get in the garage, and the car's all warmed up, or they have like their goose fat down jackets or whatever. So from a life of just taking it easy and never being exposed to extremes, most people lose their brown fat. They don't have this brown fat. And hence they have a very low tolerance for cold. Plus, a lot of people today are very have thyroid issues. So if you have a thyroid issue, that's kind of your temperature regulator. So a lot of people today just don't have tolerance for the cold. But you can get that back. And one of the ways you get that back is by shivering genesis. So when you expose your body to cold, most people know this, you shiver, you'll get goosebumps. And what that shivering is your mitochondria are going to work. So your mitochondria, they make ATP. And when they make ATP, they are also making water. So for your cells to be hydrated, that's actually from your mitochondria making water. So that cellular water is different than, say, like the water in a glass that you drink. It's actually, instead of H2O, it's H3O2, and it's more of a gel. I was actually telling Jay this the other day, how water, it's called the fourth phase of water. And this guy, Dr. Gerald Pollack, has done all this research on water, on this fourth phase of water. But when it's exposed to infrared light, it creates a battery. So you have all the negative charge on one side, the positive charge on the other. And if you look at a battery, you've got a plus on one side and negative on the other. And that difference in charge, that I forget the science behind it, but that creates a store of energy, which is a battery. And today we all use batteries. Jay's always bugging me for new batteries for his different toys. But the water in your cells makes a battery too, which is how you store energy. And when you have a good ability to store energy, it's called your redox potential. And as we age and as we get exposed to different sources of inflammation, we lose that charge. And it's kind of like if you've ever had, most people have had a phone that maybe it's a couple years old and the battery can no longer hold a charge. And it can be kind of scary if you're relying on your phone and you're away from home. I used to have a phone like that. I would carry a portable battery with me because I didn't want to have my phone die on me and not be with my phone.
Yeah, you still do that sometimes.
Yeah, but my battery's pretty good on my phone these days. But I like to have backups. So if I am going to be camping or something, I will have a battery backup. But anyway, when you don't have a good redox potential, basically you don't have a good ability to store energy. So your battery drains very quickly. When your battery in your body drains, you get different symptoms. So this cold thermogenesis is one way for you to recharge your battery and to improve your battery's ability, or your body's ability to hold a charge so your battery lasts longer. But when you expose yourself to cold, you are creating more of this brown fat. And there's another kind of fat called visceral fat. So visceral fat forms around your organs. So people who drink a lot, that have the beer belly, or just who eat just a lot of shit food, junk food all the time, they get this fat around their organs, which is very inflammatory. When you have a moderate or low amount of white adipose tissue or brown adipose tissue, that's actually anti-inflammatory. But when you get too much white adipose tissue, when you become obese, that's another source of inflammation. So by getting more cold exposure, you're making more brown fat, which is very metabolically active. So when your mitochondria aren't making energy, they can make heat to keep you warm. And if you live in the wintertime and you look outside your window or you're outside, and you see mammals running around like little chipmunks or squirrels or deer or rabbits.
Or like a bird.
Like a bird, not a mammal, but birds live outside in the winter too. Some migrate, some don't, some stay here for the winter. But their mitochondria, they're able to adapt to the cold. In their mitochondria, when they're not making energy, they're actually creating heat so the body can maintain temperature. So when you expose yourself to cold water, your body shivers. That's your mitochondria going to work. And what they're doing, they're making heat. How do they make heat? They actually create light. They make infrared light. And if anybody's ever gone to, let's say you get to a party, or like some of the first ones to a party, there's a few people at the party. Let's say it's a house party. So you're like in the main part of the room. It's not too hot. All of a sudden the party fills up and it gets really hot. That's because everybody's body is putting off this infrared heat. That heats up the room. So you start to notice it as it fills up and you have more and more bodies creating more heat. But your mitochondria, they make this infrared light. And that infrared light goes in the cell, and that water in the cell. And it actually shrinks. Water has some, like, it's called queer properties. So it means that it has some very strange properties. Typically when things get heated, they expand. But when water gets heated in your cell or exposed to infrared light, it actually shrinks. And your mitochondria has all these respiratory proteins. And your mitochondria make ATP by tunneling electrons and protons. So essentially the electrons and protons, they're jumping. You've got these 5 proteins, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They tunnel. So they jump. It goes like from here to here, here to here. But when you have inflammation, these proteins, these cytochromes, they stretch out. And every 1 angstrom that they increase in space, that decreases your energy production by a factor of 10. And to give you an idea of how small an angstrom is, most people know how tiny a millimeter is. It's like that, like this big. And there's 1,000,000 nanometers in that millimeter. There are 10 angstroms in a nanometer. So it's super tiny. But so every 1 angstrom increase, remember, we're talking on the subatomic level here. So in your cell, there's a whole nother world going on. You've got anywhere from a couple hundred to thousands of mitochondria, and you've got your cellular nucleus, but there's all these other different things in the cell. So inside the cell, it's kind of like its own world. It's like its own ecosystem. But when you spend time in this cold water, that shrinks the respiratory proteins in your mitochondria. It brings them closer together. It increases their efficiency in making ATP. So when you're in that cold water, you're making more energy. It's doing a lot of other things as well. So there's, to kind of measure the effectiveness of cold thermogenesis, there's 2 factors. There's time and there's temperature. And there's quite a bit of published research on cold thermogenesis. Most of that published research is at 14 degrees Celsius or 55 degrees Fahrenheit. If you do colder water, you're getting more of that stimulus. So you get more of an effect so when Jay was in the 44 degree water, he got more of an effect than he would if he was in 55 degree water. Now, the other thing is duration. Jay was only in for I made him do it twice, so 40 seconds. So he did get some benefit, but the longer you're in there, the more benefit you're going to get. So if you're just kind of doing this out of curiosity.
And when you also do it, after you do it, you usually feel way happier than you did before you did it.
Yeah. And the reason is because it increases dopamine by like 400%. But so like the 2 levers, the temperature and the time. If you're healthy like Jay, all you need is like 30 to 60 seconds, and you're going to get a pretty massive boost in energy and happiness, in focus and motivation from that dopamine increase. But if you're dealing with a lot, so like when I had Lyme disease, I was in really rough shape. So I needed to do more time. If you're very overweight, you're going to need a lot more time. If you have a heart disease, then you should probably hold off on this, or just proceed with extreme caution. Like, you don't want to start at 55 degrees, maybe start at like 80 degrees, and you'll get a benefit. So your body temp is 98.6 degrees, and your mitochondria actually maintain that body temp. So even if you do 80-degree water, which a lot of people swim in that water or colder, you still get the benefit, because when you go in that colder water, it starts to drop your body temperature. And what does your body do? It cranks up the mitochondria to maintain that body temperature. So if you have a heart disease and you're curious in trying this, start with, like, if you're used to like a swimming pool at 70 degrees, then maybe start with like 68 degrees or something, but go easy. I just went balls to the wall when I did it, because that's how I tend to do things. So depending on your personality type or what works for you, kind of listen to your body and go with that. If you want to get the most benefit and you don't have a heart condition, then start with 50 to 55 degree water. And I'm going to talk you through how to do that. But depending on what you're dealing with, that just depends on how much time you're going to need to do this. Now, in the beginning, you're not going to do 30 minutes right off the bat. You're going to start the first time you do full body submersion. For most people, you're going to do 1 to 2 minutes. You're going to build from there. Now, what's that?
You haven't told like the part before you do full submersion.
Well, I'm going to. Jay was just reminding me something I forgot to share with you guys. But so there's a couple things you can do to increase the conversion of white fat to brown fat. So number one is just cold exposure. Number two is actually capsaicin. So eating spicy food, that will help to increase that conversion. And then bitter melon, you can get it as a supplement. If it's not like a standard thing in most Western grocery stores, but if you've ever shopped in an Asian grocery store, they sell bitter melon. I've actually never got it fresh, but it kind of looks like a wrinkly cucumber, like a light green wrinkly cucumber. But you can buy a supplement called bitter melon, and you can take that. That's going to help with the conversion of white fat to brown fat. And as you build more brown fat, it makes it much easier for you to tolerate the cold. Now, another benefit of this, especially for people who are overweight, who are obese, who want to lose that weight, is when you go on a diet, your fat cells shrink. When you do cold thermogenesis, your fat cells actually die and go away. So when you're, and you can actually see this. So like little kids who eat a lot of popsicles from like sucking on the extreme cold, they'll get like little dimples in their cheeks because your cheeks have some fat in them. And from that cold on the fat, that actually kills some of the fat cells in the cheeks, and kids can get like dimples in their cheeks from just having too many popsicles or just chewing on ice all the time. But your cells, certain things can cause what's called apoptosis, which is cellular death. So when you have to get the water pretty cold for this, but when your fat cells get to a certain point of coldness, they go through apoptosis, they die, they're gone for good. There are some other ways to do that. There's this thing called cold sculpting, or Zeltique. Plastic surgeons will do it, and what they do is they use these very cold metal plates. They'll put them on, say, like, mostly women do this, but men can do it too. Let's say the woman's stomach, they want to lose some belly fat, or maybe they're, I don't know, like under their arms or wherever, but they'll put these very cold metal plates on there, and that gets it cold enough where it kills the fat cells. The other way to do it is through liposuction, where they basically put that vacuum cleaner under your skin and they just suck out the fat. Now, people, if that's your solution is to do liposuction, it's probably going to come back, because unless you change your lifestyle and your eating habits, if you get it sucked out, it's just going to come back. If you're willing to do the cold, hopefully you're willing to change your diet and your lifestyle as well. Now, the other thing the cold does is it really activates different catecholamines. So the main ones that it activates are norepinephrine, epinephrine, and cortisol. So that's actually adrenaline. And so when you get exposed to this extreme cold, your body releases this adrenaline. And that's actually what helps keep you warm. To this day, the first minute or so still sucks for me. Psychologically, I do not want to get in the cold bath, but I don't think about it. I just do it. And I never regret doing it. But the first minute is not easy. The first minute sucks because you're going through that acclimation, and you need that extreme cold to really activate that release of epinephrine and norepinephrine. And once you get that release, your body's in almost like a mild state of shock, I guess. And it becomes much easier to tolerate the cold. Like, it still feels cold, but it no longer bothers me. And I'm just kind of like chilling out. A lot of people will tell you if you have adrenal fatigue, cold thermogenesis is not a good idea. I actually had I was like right on the cusp between stage 2 and stage 3 adrenal fatigue when I started doing this. And there's 3 stages of adrenal fatigue. Maybe we'll talk about that in another one of these because it's pretty common today. But when you have a chronically disrupted circadian rhythm, you're basically burning through all your cortisol. And cortisol is a building block for your sex steroid hormones and also for epinephrine and norepinephrine, but also testosterone, progesterone. So when people have adrenal fatigue, there's this thing called progesterone steal syndrome. So all of your hormones are getting diverted to cortisol because you're chronically stressed, and you're not getting progesterone. Progesterone goes on to make estrogen and estradiol and testosterone. So typically people who have adrenal fatigue also have very low sex steroid hormones, and they tend to have higher infertility rates, which was me. My ex-wife and I, we tried to conceive for 6 years. It didn't happen. But I did this cold, and guess what? I met a new woman, and this kid popped out. But for people who are experiencing are having a hard time with conception the old-fashioned way, without doing IVF, cold is very beneficial for this as well. I know quite a few people who had trouble conceiving, and from doing cold thermogenesis and other lifestyle changes too, they were able to conceive. But I did have adrenal fatigue. So there's different stages of adrenal fatigue. And when you get up to stage 2 and 3, you're just extremely exhausted all the time. But I just pushed through it. It does take a little bit longer to get that full adaptation if you have adrenal fatigue, but just kind of start slow, build your way up, and you can actually reverse adrenal fatigue as well, because I was able to do that doing this. Other hormones that it increases, IGF-1, which is growth hormone. So if your body is doing repair and regeneration, you need growth hormone for that. If you want to pack on muscle, you need growth hormone. So the reason I was able to start doing CrossFit and put on all this weight is because I was making all this growth hormone. It also increases free testosterone. So I had my testosterone tested when I was going through this. It was super low. I had ED for quite a while going through this because my testosterone was so low. Cold fixed that too. The other thing it does, so it increases not only free testosterone, but it increases your sensitivity to hormones. Now, I've talked a little bit about leptin on past shows before, but leptin is your master hormone. I was also leptin resistant. A lot of people today are leptin resistant. So people, if you're dealing with obesity, if you're dealing with stubborn weight gain, if you're dealing with diabetes, if you're dealing with infertility, if you're dealing with autoimmune, that's all driven by leptin resistance. So leptin resistance shows up 5 to 7 years. Even I've seen some research showing 9 years before insulin resistance. Cold also liberates leptin. So cold will push you back toward leptin sensitivity. It increases, as Jay mentioned, it makes you feel good. It increases your dopamine. It's really good for focus. When you get done with a cold bath, your focus is going to be a whole lot better. So I'm just looking at my notes here. Talked about capsaicin. Other things you can do to help increase the conversion is to do some MCT oil or coconut oil after you get out of the cold bath. And something else I want to share is the adaptation lasts very long. So when I first started doing it, I had very positive results from doing cold therapy. And I think 2 years into it, I was totally symptom free, and I just like, oh, I don't have to do this anymore. So I stopped doing it. And I stopped for, it was 6 to 12 months. But I forget exactly why. Maybe I saw like a YouTube on the benefits of cold thermogenesis, or someone was talking about it. But I decided to start doing it again. And I thought I would have to readapt, but I just picked up right where I left off. And I've known other people that have had like a year gap, year plus, and they've been able to pick up right where they left off. At some point, you're going to lose all your brown fat. I lived in a pretty cold environment because I moved back to New York. So even though I wasn't doing cold during that time, I still had cold exposure. But you can do this and you will maintain it for a pretty long time. Now, another big benefit of the cold that I didn't mention is cold exposure also depletes deuterium. So I've talked a little bit about deuterium in the past, but deuterium is an isotope of hydrogen. And as people accumulate deuterium, that has a major impact on your mitochondrial health. So pretty much everything I've talked about so far since I've been doing this Quantum Biology Revolution show has all been targeted towards deuterium depletion. So this is one of the best things you can do to deplete deuterium. Because as you age, as you collect more deuterium, it's kind of like putting sugar in your gas tank. So it really slows down your mitochondrial output of ATP. This is going to add years to your life because it's helping you deplete deuterium. And something that most people are gonna realize from doing this is when you get in the cold, and a lot of people have experienced this, when you go outside in the cold and after a little bit, all of a sudden you have to pee. And the reason is because your mitochondria are firing up. And remember, they make water, they make ATP, they make carbon dioxide. But the water they're making is called exclusion zone water. So everything larger than a hydrogen atom gets excluded from that. So when your mitochondria are working really well, it's pushing out that deuterium, that heavy water, and that goes into your blood. And when your blood has too much water in it, or your kidneys filter it out, and then you pee it out. So you're peeing out that deuterium. So word to the wise, before you do a cold bath, make sure you pee, get it all out, or you'll be peeing in the tub, unless you can hold it really long. But here's the protocol to get, if you're still with me. If you're still with me and you want to get cold adapted, the first step is to do face dunks. And what you do is you take a bowl, good sized bowl, you fill it up with ice water, you hold your breath, and you just put your face in the bowl. And the first time you do it, it is going to be very uncomfortable. I've had clients of mine, they're telling me, I'm like swearing your name as I do this, Nathan, because it's so like painful. but it's only painful for the first week or so. And I promise you, if you stick with this, if you can make it through a week, what you're going to do, you're going to put your face in as long as you can. The first time you do it, most people don't last that long. You might last 5-10 seconds. And this is something Jay has done before too. But you'll have to come out, not because you need air, because it's just so painful on your face. But you do that 5 times. So you put your face in as long as you can. You come out, have a towel, blot your face off, rest a minute, repeat. Do that 5 times. You get to the end of a week, you'll be able to keep your face in much longer than at the start of the week. I was on to phase 2 after the first week. Some people want to take 2 weeks to get here. Take as long as you want to take. But if at the end of the first week it's still very painful on your face, you need another week. You're ready to graduate to step 2 or phase 2 once you can keep your face in the water for as long as you can hold your breath. So your hair, I don't have hair. If you have a lot of hair, your hair doesn't have to go in the water. It's just your face. And you have your trigeminal nerve, which comes into your face. And when that cold water hits that nerve, it tells your brain that cold times are coming. And actually, that just reminds me of something that I think I started to touch on it, but I didn't go deep enough. The other thing the cold does is it makes you more, I mentioned this for leptin, so it makes you more leptin sensitive, but it makes you more sensitive to your other hormones too. But in the case of testosterone, so I mentioned I had very low testosterone. When I was doing the cold, I had more free testosterone, but I also increased my sensitivity to the testosterone I had. And that allowed me to really build muscle and get my fecundity back and just really get everything back, drive, motivation. And for women, they'll have their hormones are going to be better as well. So that's the other really big benefit is you're increasing sensitivity to all hormones, insulin as well. People can literally reverse type 2 diabetes from doing this, and improving sleep, improving diet. But cold is a major tool that you can use to not only reverse disease, but to keep yourself in your prime, have better focus, have better energy. You will sleep better. Back to the 3-step process. Once you can keep your face in the water for as long as you can hold your breath, you're ready for phase 2. So phase 2 is you want to take ice packs. This is where you have the most amount of brown fat, kind of right in here and back in here. And what you want to do, you want to take an ice pack that's kind of the size of your torso and put it on your torso. So you can go on like Amazon and find a sports ice pack. What I did was, I'm really into cooking, so I have what's called a sous vide machine. And with the sous vide, you vacuum seal your food. So using my vacuum sealer, I made basically like a plastic bag with water. I sealed it, laid it flat, and I froze it. So it was about this thick with ice. And I would put that on my torso. Now, ladies, if you have larger breasts, you'll need 2 of them. You'll need one for above your breast, one for below your breast. Remember, cold kills fat cells. Breasts are mostly fat. If you like the size of your breasts, keep the ice away, keep the cold away from your breast, or it will shrink them. If they're a little too big, then you can ice them, and that'll shrink them a little bit. But start off with the ice. The other thing is you want to put on a compression shirt. So the compression shirt is going to bring your capillaries closer to the surface of your skin. That's going to help desensitize you to the cold faster. That's going to increase the adaptation process. So put that ice pack on you, start with 5 minutes, work towards 60 minutes. Once you can do 60 minutes, you're ready for phase 3. So phase 3 is full body. And what you want to do, you can either fill up your tub, you can get like a big plastic bin and just fill that up outside. You can use fresh water, but be very safe about it. You don't want to go in fresh water that's over your head, because if the shock is a little too much, you could get yourself in some pretty big trouble. So if you have a pond where it's kind of shallow and you can just kind of ease your way in, that's fine. But don't put yourself in a dangerous situation. I did it for me. I just did it in my bathtub. And in the beginning, I would buy bags of ice, but it's a pain in the butt because A, you have to go to the store. It's kind of expensive getting like 7, 8 bags of ice. What I would do is I would get these like gallon size Tupperware containers. I would fill them with water. Don't fill it all the way because when you freeze water, it expands. So give yourself a little gap on the top. But I would do 3 blocks of ice, and putting that in the water would get it down in the 50s. Because when I first started this, I was living in Virginia and the water came out of the tap in the summer like 70 degrees. It was pretty warm. Once I got really into it and I wanted to make the water colder, I actually purchased a saltwater aquarium chiller. So for saltwater fish, you want the water colder, I guess. I don't know a lot about it, but they sell these aquarium chillers. So I had an aquarium chiller. It would take quite a while to get the water cold. So I had an extra bathroom at the time. There was like a guest bathroom. So I would just once a week, I would fill the tub. I would have a timer on it. So when I was at work, it would turn this thing on like 3 hours before I would get home. And I would just keep the tub full of water for a week at a time. I would put some Epsom salt in there too, just to help kill any bacteria. But with the chiller, I could get it down in the 40s. So you've got a couple different options. If you live in a cold place, if you have a well, it's going to come out of the well or out of the tap pretty cold. My last cold bath on Thursday, the water came out of the tap 48 degrees. It's starting to get warmer, but it's still at a nice cold temperature. So get your tub or your bin outside, or you can use a kiddie pool, but you want it deep enough where you can get your torso submerged in water. Once you have your water all set, you want to drink a good sized glass of ice water. And what that's going to do is when you drink the ice water, remember your body wants to maintain that 98.6 degree temperature. So you drink the ice water, that cools down your body, your mitochondria turn on to bring up your body temperature to maintain that 98.6. That's going to help the cold adaptation a little easier. And start off with like 2, 3, 4 minutes and just work your way up. And the first minute sucks. I'm not going to lie. It's a huge shock. It feels kind of good, but it's a shock too. But just get yourself to power through that first minute or two and stick with it. And it becomes, I don't know if I want to call it like a super enjoyable practice. Like I enjoy it when I'm in the tub. I'm reading a book to pass the time. But the overall practice for me is very enjoyable. Those days are always just feeling more focused and more clarity and more energy. And it's just an amazing biohack. I can't say enough about it. I hope that you will give yourself the gift of cold so you can see what it does for you. But if you haven't yet, go ahead and get my top 9 biohacks. This is one of the 9. And I do have the steps in those top 9 biohacks. But check out some of the other biohacks to help you increase your mitochondrial output so your cells make more energy. The other thing the cold does is it does this thing called mitochondrial biogenesis. It helps you make more mitochondria too. So tons of benefits. I shared a lot. I probably missed some. And but just do it. See for yourself. See how good it's going to make you feel. See how it helps your performance. And if you want more guided support for this, go to my website. You can schedule a time for us to meet. I can spend some time, talk with you, help you identify the things that have impacted your mitochondrial health. And I'll tell you my plan for you to get you back on track. So if you want guided coaching support, that's for you. if you want to DIY, get my top 9 biohacks. And if you're not quite sure about this, start with the face dunks and build from there. Thanks for checking this out. Jay, you want to say good night?
Yeah. Bye.
And I'll be back next week. Take care.
Peace.
Do not try and bend the spoon. That's impossible. Only try to realize the truth.
What truth?
There is no spoon.